One of the reasons I want to get into this with you is you're really close in the NIL space, right? Nick Shuley, in addition to your work with live music here in Austin, Texas, and the Austin Music Movement, you also started and created the Clarkfield Collective, which is now Clarkfield Creative. You also are heavy with the Texas One Fund. And I want to talk to you about that. But look, immediately when Texas gets another 5-star, the thing is, well, they got another 5-star. And they're NIL. They're buying players, okay? That's the kind of the narrative. And as Rod and I debated yesterday, NIL certainly helps, right? Texas has deep pockets. It's now legal. But it's not just that. Because the kid yesterday, Brandon Baker from Mater Dei out in Southern California, it's not just NIL why he's leaving California. Sark's own son went to that same high school, who's playing on this Texas team right now. There's ties to that program in Sark, without a doubt. There's also, the great education at the University of Texas. But I think the word that Rod said yesterday that I think is maybe the key to all this right now for Texas is development.
Yeah.
Development. Where can I go where I'm going to play with really good players, make some money because it's now legal, and be developed to go off to the next level while getting a great education? And, and Jalen Ford's a great example of that because, yes, they're now getting 5 stars, but I read this earlier, Nick, and I'll read it again. Jim Nagy, who they handed out the award yesterday, the Reese's Senior Bowl. They hand out a National Player of the Week every week, and yesterday they announced that Jalen Ford was the Reese's Senior Bowl Defensive Player of the Week nationally. And the Senior Bowl is that all-star game they play every year in Alabama, and it's the best draftable seniors or players, and they go head-to-head, of course, get a week of practice in front of all the NFL scouts, and it's their kind of launch into the draft process. Well, upon announcing that Jalen Ford was the Defensive Player of the week, Jim Nagy, who's the director of the Senior Bowl, had this tweet, said, "Few things are harder for NFL scouts to find than 1, an off-ball linebacker who can play on sub-downs, and 2, a defensive player who turns the ball over. Nobody in the 2024 draft fits both roles like Texas football linebacker Jalen Ford." Pretty high praise from someone who is higher up as far as that hierarchy goes. And I always say Jalen Ford was a 3-star recruit. This is a guy that came in with not a lot of herald, who is now getting credit like that from a guy like Jim Nagy, that this guy is going to be a hugely popular prospect come draft time. Though, you combine all those things, Nick, this is a very attractive place. And you have a guy like Sark who's doing a good job, coaching. Development is huge, and it's the thing Texas wasn't doing for so long. Where 5 stars come to die, right? 5 stars turn into 3 stars. Texas has, in a short amount of time, since that Kansas game that we just talked about and everybody wants to forget, they have changed that culture. It's a big deal because if Jalen Ford, a 3 stars, is going to become a high NFL draft pick, if Arch Manning and the Manning family give you the endorsement that we want to come be developed, our next player wants to be developed by this coaching staff, this is what's attracting these players. It's not just NIL money, Nick.
Yeah, 100%. And first off, Jalen, it speaks to his work ethic. Like we work with him a lot, and he is an amazing kid. He was the first one to say something about, don't drink the poison of everybody talking great about it. He's a great leader. He works his rear end off. And also, by the way, he is enormous. Like, he is a large human. His arms are bigger than my legs. So he's.
And you're a bike rider.
I don't know about that, but he's definitely that. But we talk about this all the time. The easy, lazy thing that everyone always wants to say anytime Texas gets a commitment is, oh, NIL and money and blah blah blah. Like, here's the deal. Like, and we talk about this a lot. And I'm actually really tight with the folks who run Division Street, like the University of Oregon Collective, which is a lot of Nike folks. And look, there's money out there, but if people are talking about that, like that's the sole reason kids are coming, there's money everywhere. Like, do you think Oregon doesn't have money? Yeah, Texas has money. That's not the difference, and that's not the thing. Yeah, I'm sure that plays into a lot of these kids' decisions. Obviously, if they're smart, it needs to be in that conversation. But what Texas can offer outside of that, I think you not only have these, you not only now have, we're winning, we're developing, we have Texas, we're in Austin, we're in an exciting city. There are, you look at stories like Tuck of kids getting, that don't end up playing football. You can still find a place to go. Those are the things, in my opinion, that actually separate it. Because if a family's sole decision in their room with the coach is like based on, oh, this amount or that amount, which, we're honestly not a part of that. We have nothing to do any of that, and the coaches don't either. But like, if that's the decision you're making, then that you can go anywhere. There's money everywhere. There's money at Oklahoma State. There's money at, all these things. But I think that, like, if you're looking at this from a 10,000 foot perspective, the amount of things that Austin and Texas can offer, yeah, we're totally biased. It's another level.
Yeah. And again, and Rod Beebe, who played in the NFL, if not for shoulder injuries, would have played a longer career. He understands this. All that's great, but they want to play in the league.
Yeah.
The guys who are coming to Texas want to play in the league. And, that's how Georgia's been built. That's why they're littering NFL rosters with players. That's why they've taken and built a wall around the state of Georgia, because Georgia's winning and they're going to the NFL.
And they're developing.
They're developing. That's the key. And then I'll give Sark a lot of credit because, when Longhorn fans were told, trust the process by Tom Herman, cake is baked and Charlie Strong. I mean, this is just the latest coach telling us, it takes time, wait and see. And it's not there yet, but boy, you see it going in a really good place because this coaching staff is elite. This coaching staff is developing players. Jalen Ford, David Benda. Think about David Benda.
Yeah.
Did Patrick cut the David Benda quote because I heard I thought it was a great quote from the press conference yesterday. David Benda is a fifth-year player.
Yeah.
And David Benda let's hear Sark talking about, because he tells the story of this should be recognized because it's so easy to go find a new place today. Like if you're getting passed up on the depth chart and you're not playing much, go somewhere else, and that no one's going to criticize you for it. Sark wanted to recognize David Benda, who had a heck of a game against the Baylor Bears.
I love David Benda's story. In this day and age of college football, I think we're diminishing and losing the value of perseverance. And he is a prime example of perseverance that, for 2 years, he's at best a role player, spotty special teams play. Some games, plays a few snaps, some not. But the stick-to-itiveness, the work ethic, the commitment to the program. Like I said, he had his best offseason this offseason, his best spring, his best summer. And in the end, he's earning a degree from the University of Texas, which was part of the reason he chose to come to school here. Yeah, he's a frontline player for us now. He's a team leader. Hopefully that we celebrate those guys more nowadays because they're starting to become a dying breed. We don't see those guys as much anymore. It's nowadays he's not starting as a true freshman or a true sophomore, so what's wrong? Well, he's developed, and development is a big key component to building your program and sustaining your program. But the players need to recognize development too. And I think that's something that David recognized, that he continued to get better. He continued to work. I credit Jeff Choate, our linebacker coach, for the work that he's done with him. And hopefully there's more examples of that as we move through this era of the transfer portal, that those guys that have that level of perseverance off the field to stick to something that they committed to doing, I think carry that perseverance onto the field with them as well. And I think David's just a really prime example of that.
All right, good stuff. Great. I mean, Jonathan Brooks on the running back side. Again, I don't criticize guys if they want to go somewhere else, right? I mean, Jonathan Brooks was behind a 5-star running back and in Bijan and Roshan, and then they recruited a 5-star kid from Orlando, and he's the starter. It's kind of natural to say, man, I'll go somewhere else. I'm a good player. No, and here's a text that says Benda is a great example of wanting to play for Texas, not at Texas, for Texas. And he did promise his parents he'd get a degree. He's out of Katy, and and I'm sure you've worked with him on the NIL space. These are good kids what Sark is doing. There's a lot of substance to this. This isn't just flash and 4-0 start. There's a lot going on that really started with that Kansas loss 2 years ago.
Yeah, and look, it's impressive to see what's going on. I had someone tell me the other day, I forget, we were talking about Texas, and they're like, I'm still not sold on Sark. And I'm like, well, every sign he's showing shows that he knows what he's doing, that he's building it right, and with time. And look, things go wrong. Teams that win national championship lose games, and it doesn't mean that the sky's falling or things like that. But he's showing all the signs, and it's impressive to me the way he's building a program. It's not just the product on the field and understanding how to how to talk to the media, how to talk to recruits, how to talk to donors, all these things. Like, those are all pieces of going into a head coach. And Mac Brown was great at it. He was a great CEO of that program and a great face, and just did a good job with a lot of that stuff. And I think, to me, Sark's showing a lot of those signs, and I'm impressed. And I think, these next couple of weeks are going to tell us a lot, and we'll see how people react if things don't go perfectly. But it's, this is, that things are definitely focused in the right direction and heading in the right direction. I think, we had all these moments where it felt like we were kind of wandering aimlessly, and I don't feel like that anymore. This feels right.
Yeah, it's not hollow. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just going to collapse tomorrow.
There's depth everywhere, not just in on the field.
And again, when you're adding the number one tackle prospect in the nation and the number one edge rusher in the nation for next year, on top of Arch Manning and all these, these recruiting classes start to stack.
Yeah.
And if they're then getting developed, because look, the guys we just talked about, Jalen Ford and David Benda, they were here when Sark got here.
Yeah.
Like, those were guys they inherited that are developing, stuck with it, stuck it out. That is an outlier in today's college football where, well, the new coaching staff comes and they don't like me, I'm moving on. I mean, those guys saw that they hired a really good staff that can help me get better, but then you start recruiting the top end talent. And again, those guys aren't all going to work out. No one's saying that, but if you bring in several 5-stars each year and you bat 75% with them, that's pretty good. Now you're cooking in Georgia's territory, and when Alabama was great, because you're taking those best players across the country, putting them into a great culture, and it develops. That's the thing. But you got to go win games and keep this thing going. But it does feel like that message that is being sold, that has helped build this foundation, is now turning into results on the football field.
Well, and I love having that conversation with the kids, like, just for our own research of, like, hey, when Georgia's coming after you, what are they saying? What are they talking about? And it's not like, to me, I don't care about the money aspect of it. It's more of how are they selling their program? That's super interesting to me to hear what the kids care about. And Georgia's big pitch from the few kids I've talked to that were considering Georgia, that came here, was development. That was it. And it was we're not going to sit here and tell you you're going to come in and play. We're going to sit here and tell you we're going to put you through a program and put you with coaches and a team that is going to get you ready. Look at our resume. Look at what we do. And that's a powerful sell. And if we can start selling that along with winning, along with Austin, along with, NIL, everything there is out there, it's a pretty compelling reason to end up in Austin.
Agreed. And that's why I started this conversation with the Jalen Ford tweet from Jim Nagy. When Jim Nagy's noticing, he's tweeted about the Texas defensive tackles. It was last year that Coburn and Ojimo, he said, man, these guys came out of nowhere. They were not on our radar going into the season, and they ended up both draftable players. That's the kind of stuff, and you're right. That's what players want. Sure, I want to get a great education. I want to make some money while I'm here. I want to live in a great city. But at the end of the day, I'm not going into the NFL. I'm going to be disappointed. And they can't all, but at the same time, if you're putting more, like they had, this team right now is going to have a ton of guys drafted into the NFL if they stay healthy. One more from Sark, because we played it a couple times, but I think it bears repeating. This is what we're talking about. And this started with the Kansas game 2 years ago. And remember, that was the Kansas game that they lost to a Kansas team that was terrible. Even Lance Leipold was on with Jim Rome yesterday and said, man, we were young, we were bad. We didn't even have, 50 scholarship players. And they beat Texas 57-56 in overtime. And that game came after they had lost. Remember, they had lost to Iowa State, and the Bo Davis bus ran. And so what are you going to get? I remember doing the shows leading up. What are they going to get with this? We got Bo Davis yelling at people, get off the bus or get on. And that thing was spiraling out of control. Because remember, they started that year pretty good. They were 4-1, and they were playing Oklahoma, and they were up big, and everything fell apart. Caleb Williams came in the game. They lost that game 55-48, and then they lost again, and then they lost again, and then it just spiraled out of control. And here's Sark talking about, you know what? When we had guys who were abandoning our ship that weren't getting on the ship, we kind of needed to know that. We needed to know who was with us and who wasn't, and that helped to build, clean out and then build up to where we are. Here's Sark yesterday kind of talking Zen-ish about what that was and what it meant to where they are now.
We're a resilient group. I think externally it felt worse to some degree. It hurts to lose any. As a competitor, it's never fun to lose. I don't care if it's, ping pong, whatever it is, man. If you're going to compete at something, you're trying to win. And naturally in that game, we didn't play as good as we would have liked. They made some plays at critical moments. The game didn't go our way. But in a weird way, I'm kind of glad it happened. right? Because it exposed some warts in our program that needed to get removed. And if we hadn't removed those warts, we might not be where we are today in our program. And so sometimes, you know, not all storms come to cause, you know, issues in your life. Some storms come to clear the path. And I felt like that storm cleared a path for us on what we needed to do in our program to move forward.
All right.
We're a resilient group.
Cleared a path. Some storms are needed.